Hello, team players. So, I've got one more build in my Planar Squadron party before I get back to Rival Academy's content. So let's just get right into this. So this build will cover our buffs and debuffs, which won't stack with our buffs and debuffs from our wizard, but our wizard's going to want to do action economy and manipulation most of the time anyway, and it will cover our burst healing. It can cover our out of combat healing as well, but it's not going to be as good as with that. It can also cover different damage types that our wizard can't cover, as well as our charisma based skills. It can also give us information about the future, but not recall knowledge. We already got plenty of stuff for recall knowledge, but being able to cast Augury is a big deal, especially since it'll allow us to avoid sticky situations. For our Ancestry, we rolled Compact Skeleton. So we're small rather than medium, and we gain the Quick Squeeze skill feat even if we aren't qualified for it. We don't have to be trained in acrobatics to get it. We just automatically get it. In addition, tight spaces that don't require us to squeeze through aren't difficult terrain for us. This effectively means if there's a tight space near us, we can make it extremely difficult for enemies to get anywhere near us, which is fantastic for a healer. And we can probably still use our heal spells because they have a range of 30 feet if we use 2 actions. Moving on to attributes. Our most important is going to be our charisma, followed by our dexterity. Charisma, because we're playing an oracle today, so we want that high spell DC and spell attack roll. Dexterity for our defense, and sometimes we want to use ranged attacks, like a bow or something. So that's going to really help with that. We don't want to be in melee with this build, so yes, dexterity is going to be highly important. You might also want some constitution for those extra hit points. Alright, for skills, you're mostly going to want to focus on your charisma-based skills. After all, we're going to have high charisma, and being the face of the party is a pretty big deal, and we might as well pick up that role. In addition, since you're going to be trained in nature anyway from our subclass, which we'll talk about in a second, you might as well also pick up religion, because that ranger may fail on his religion checks outside of combat. Medicine might also be important if you need out-of-combat healing. But choose your skills wisely, because you're not going to get many as an oracle, especially since our intelligence isn't going to be that high. Alright, for today's class, we're going oracle, as I've said, and we're taking the Cosmos Mystery. That means we automatically get the light, dizzying colors, darkness, and moon frenzy spells. We also get the Spray of Stars focus spell, which works similarly to the Breathe Fire regular spell, except that it does less damage, but it can also dazzle opponents from anywhere from 1 round on a success to 1 minute on a critical failure. Dazzle is pretty much a 25% your targeting does not work. It doesn't matter if you're trying to debuff someone or do damage to them or anything. If the thing that you want to do targets, this is 25%, it does not work. Whatever your enemy is trying to do, it will still work 3/4 of the time. But putting a flat check on their targeting is a pretty big deal. And this doesn't work on things like area effects like Fireball. But you'd be surprised how few enemies actually have area effects. So this will apply to a lot of creatures. You'll also get the Ocular Warning class feat, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. And of course, like all Oracle mysteries, we do get a curse. But this particular curse doesn't matter near as much as you think. We do want to lower our curse so we can cast more focus spells. But the actual effects of the curse don't matter near as much as you think. Not for this build. We become enfeebled equal to our curse-bound value. We also take a status penalty to our saves and DCs against any and all forms of forced movement. In most cases, the enfeebled doesn't matter in the slightest. We don't want to be in melee in this belt. So, lowering our strength-based stuff doesn't really hurt us at all. As for the penalty on saves and DCs against forced movements, in most cases, that actually helps us, as most forms of forced movement are away from enemies, which is exactly where we want to be. The only time it doesn't is if there's hazards in the environment. If there's hazards in the environment, then we gotta be extremely careful about our positioning, as we don't want to get pushed into a pit of acid or something, or lava or whatever. But other than that, and lowering our curse so we can cast more focus spells, we really don't have to worry about this curse much at all. Alright, now we can talk about first level, starting with that Ocular Warning feat. So with Ocular Warning, as a free action, whenever we're about to roll initiative, we can increase our curse in order to give our allies a +2 bonus on their initiative, and temporary hit points equal to half our level. That lasts for 1 minute. If we're curse bound 2, when we use this, then the bonus on initiative goes up to +3. And if we're curse bound 3, it goes up to +4. This is pretty much going to come up constantly because it's 20 feet. How many times are allies not going to be within 20 feet when a combat starts? Granted, this is limited because we can only be curse bound 4. Of course, until level 17, the highest we can be is curse bound 3. So, and remember, our curse doesn't matter to us in the slightest. So yeah, we're going to be using this every combat, pretty much. We are going to have to refocus a lot in this build because number 1, we're going to be using our focus spells a lot, and 2, we can't really use curse bound abilities once we hit that curse bound 2 and eventually curse bound 3 and 4. So even though the effects of our curse don't matter to us in the slightest, we still have to lower it down in order to use our curse bound abilities. For our first level Ancestry feat, we're going to be taking As in Life, So in Death. We pick an Ancestry. We can pick any Ancestry, but since we're a compact skeleton, we probably want to pick something small. In this case, we want to pick Goblin. So, we get the adopted Ancestry feat for Goblin, allowing us to take Goblin feats. In addition, as long as our body is completely covered by armor or clothing, we don't have to make deception checks to act like a goblin. We can go into town and people will think we're a goblin as long as they aren't actively attempting a perception check. However, this is a non-magical disguise and therefore does not work against divination magic. After all, we're a skeleton. It's not exactly going to be easy for us to just walk into town, right? But this way, we can do things in town that a normal living creature would be able to do without anybody knowing that we're actually a skeleton. And getting goblin feats is actually going to be very important for this build, which we'll talk about in a second. At level 2, we're going to be taking a very important feat called Nudge the Scales. The first thing this does is let us heal any creature, regardless of whether it's living or undead, for 2+ double our level, as long as they are within 30 feet of us. But what's most important about this feat is during our daily preparations, we can choose to align ourselves with life or death. If we choose life, then we heal from vitality spells. If we choose death, we heal from harm spells or void effects. We are a skeleton. That means normally we would be harmed by our own heal spells. And that's not good at all. So most of the time, we're going to want to align ourselves with life so that we can actually heal from our own heal spells. This also gives us a way of healing our allies without using spell slots, which is a pretty big deal as well. And we are a creature within 30 feet of us, so we can use this on ourselves too. Very, very important feat here. At level 3, unlike my last 2 builds, we do want to take Canny Acumen here. We won't become expert in Fortitude saves until level 9, and we won't become expert in Reflex saves until level 13. We probably want to pick Fortitude saves here, simply because we are going to have lower Constitution than Dexterity. But you can pick anything except Will saves here, because we're going to become Master in Will saves at level 7. So there's no point in taking Canny Acumen for Will save. But you can pick either Fortitude or Reflex saves here. For level 4, you're going to want to take Domain Acumen. And you want to pick the Darkness Domain here. That'll give you the Cloak of Shadow focus spell, which will really help out our Ranger when he wants to be stealthing around, as that will reduce bright light regardless of whether it's non-magical or magical, and give the Ranger, or us, or anyone, the concealed condition, allowing them to hide. For our level 5 Ancestry feat, we're going to be taking Goblin Song. This is the feat why we need performance. We make a performance check against the will DC of one enemy within 30 feet. As we get better in performance, we can target more enemies with this. On a critical success, the target takes a -1 status penalty on their perception checks and will saves for 1 minute. On a success, they take the penalty for 1 round. On a critical failure, they're immune to this for 1 hour. There's 2 things that this does really well for this party. First, it makes it harder for enemies to perceive the ranger when he's stealthing. The second thing this does is, remember our wizard? How he wants to use will save spells? Yeah, -1 on their saves against those. And of course, we can use this to lower their will saves for our spells too. And all this requires is a single action, which means we can do this and cast a spell on the same turn. For level 6, we're going to be taking Advanced Revelation, which gives us the Interstellar Void focus spell. We can target a creature within 30 feet, and we can deal 3d6 cold damage to them immediately, and each time we sustain it, which we can sustain it for up to 1 minute, so basically the entire encounter. They do get a basic fortitude save each time they take the damage, but as long as they're taking the damage, they are fatigued as well, which is a -1 to AC and all their saving throws. They're going to be fatigued until they make that critical success, which is a big deal, and this is effectively 3d6 persistent cold damage. Not only can this hit enemy weaknesses, but that fatigue condition will stack with the circumstance debuffs from being flanked, or being on the ground, or being grappled. And remember that our ranger is lowering the multiple attack penalty of melee attacks. And our 2 melee attackers are going to have a multiple attack penalty of -2, -4. So effectively, just from this and them being off guard, we are lowering their armor class for our 2nd and 3rd attacks by 6, which is nuts. And remember, we're also lowering their saves with this. While this won't stack with Goblin Song, what it will do is lower their other 2 saves, which our wizard may be able to hit. Another great focus spell here that we'll definitely want to use a lot. It's only 1 creature, but again, that's why we have Goblin Song as well. For level 7, again, we'll want to take either Toughness or Die Hard here. They're both good, whichever one you want to take. Toughness will give us more hit points and make it easier for us to make death saving throws, and Die Hard will make us die dying 5 rather than dying 4. You will want to take both of these eventually, but you can go either or here. For level 8, we're going to be taking Surging Might. So, after using this, if our next action is to cast a spell, then that spell will ignore an amount of resistance equal to our level against Vitality, Void, and Spirit damage. While this doesn't ignore immunities, it does apply to all damage the spells deal, including persistent damage and damage caused by ongoing effects of the spell. There are some creatures out there that do have resistance to Vitality or Void damage. This will help us do more damage to them. I don't know of any creatures that are resistant to Spirit damage, but I'm sure there's some. This won't come out much, but it will be good to have when you need it. For our level 9 Ancestry feat, we're going to be taking Loud Singer. Our Goblin Song now affects creatures within 60 feet, and we can target 1 additional enemy with it, which of course means even more enemies are going to have lower will saves and perception checks, which is a pretty big deal. And the last feat I'm going to cover in this video is Trial by Skyfire. We target a 10-foot emanation centered on us. We can't exclude ourselves from this, but all creatures in the area take 2d6 fire damage at the end of each of our turns with a basic reflex save. This lasts for 1 minute, and we can't dismiss it. However, we can suppress the effect by using a sustain action. This is also suppressed if we fall unconscious. If we become Cursebound 3 or 4 at any time during this duration, the effect's emanation increases to 15 feet and the damage increases to 4d6. This may be one reason why you want to pick reflex saves for your canny acumen, as you are affected by this, but you do get a basic reflex save. Remember, we also have the Divine List and heal spells, so we can heal ourselves. We also do have to be careful about this because our allies can be hit by this too. But this is a great way to keep enemies away from you, as they don't want to get hit by a bunch of meteors. And we can suppress it if we need to. Alright, for spells, you're going to need a harm spell, particularly at level 1, because you're going to need to heal yourself. And until you pick up that second level feat, heal spells aren't going to do it. Once you do pick up that second level feat, you'll be able to use your harm spells to actually do damage, as Void is the only type of damage that our wizard cannot do no matter what. You might also want some spells to deal spirit damage, which the Divine List is very good at. You also will need heal spells to heal your living allies, and those will also help you deal with undead. You'll also want buff and debuff spells like Fear and Ghoulish Cravings. Those won't stack with the debuffs that our wizard is giving us, but to be honest, our wizard mostly wants to do action economy manipulation anyway. And finally, divination spells might be helpful here, especially stuff like augury. Okay, for free archetype, I've got 3 that I recommend for you guys. The first is Blessed One. Getting access to Lay on Hands is really going to help your out-of-combat healing, especially once you pick up that second level feat. Next, if you have enough intelligence, you can absolutely go Alchemist for this, which will give you another way to do out-of-combat healing, and you won't have to use your second level feat then, because ironically, Elixirs of Life actually do heal undead creatures. But if you don't have the intelligence to go Alchemist, you can absolutely go Herbalist for this. But you won't be as versatile as if you had gone Alchemist, because remember, Alchemists have access to things like bombs, which will also help with different damage types. And with Alchemist, you would have access to mutagens, which is another way that you can buff allies. But with Herbalists, you would just have access to things like Elixirs of Life, Andos, Anti-Plague, stuff like that. These are all good things to have on hand, but Alchemist would give you these as well. And the last archetype I recommend for this build is Sorcerer, as that'll just give you more spells that go off your charisma. And you can pretty much pick any spell list you want here. If you want more versatility, go with the Primal list. If you want more buff spells, go with the Cult list. If you want more divination spells, go with the Arcane list. And that's the build. If you guys enjoyed this video, it would really help me out if you would subscribe. So let me know that I'm actually doing a pretty good job here. And if you want my videos early, you can become a member of this channel or join me on my Patreon page. Joining on Patreon also gets you a Google Sheet for this build and all my other builds. And of course, I want to thank all my patrons for making this channel possible, especially Daniel Landis, who's been a team manager for a long time. And if you guys want to see the wizard build that goes with this one, you can check it out right here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, teamwork is vital. It helps us solve problems.